Well, hi everybody. My name is Matt Ewing, and I'm from a little town called Seton, Illinois, which is not too far from the Mississippi River, kind of on the Illinois-Iowa border. And I wanted to share my diabetes solution kit kind of testimony with you. And to do that, I thought, I'm just going to go back and kind of tell you my story of how I found out I was diabetic and how all that processed. And if you watched last week's webinar, you probably heard or saw part of it because it was kind of blotchy in and out. So we decided to just record this and I'm going to email it to Joe, and he's going to put it up on Facebook or whatever. So with that being said, to kind of go back on my story, in October of last year, I was in for basically a routine visit at the doctor's office. I had a little issue going on with my mouth, but at the same time, the doc decided to just do my annual. I'm on blood pressure medicine, so once a year we usually do an annual checkup and blood work and urine sample, that kind of thing. And so I went in and he got a little medicine for my mouth, what was bothering me there, and he did all my blood tests and basically sent me on my way, wished me well, and said, I'll probably see you in a year. And so I was basically all but to my car in the parking lot, and the nurse comes running out and says, Mr. Ewing, you need to come back in right away. And long story short, they ended up doing a finger prick and took some blood and ran it through a blood sugar meter, and it was right at 350. And I've heard of higher numbers for sure, but obviously that's still way too high. And Doc was kind of freaking out, and yeah, you got diabetes, and we got to get you on something right now. And so he put me on metformin and another drug that I can't recall right now, in addition to the blood pressure medicine I was already on. So that put me up to 4 pills a day. When you count, one of them was twice a day. So, that's not what everybody wants to hear. Medicine's kind of been one of those things that, for me personally, it's kind of a necessary evil sometimes, and I appreciate it when I need it. I mean, certainly I think we all do, but I've also been the kind of person that if there's any way I could do something to not have to be on medicine, I certainly want to. And I'll tell you, probably most of you, that are watching this video have diabetes or know somebody you love that's got diabetes and have struggled with it, and specifically type 2 diabetes. It's kind of a humiliating thing to get. I mean, because the reality of it is it usually comes from a poor diet, in my case, a really poor diet, or just, packing on the pounds and becoming insulin resistant, obviously. And that's embarrassing. And, it's kind of hard to look in the mirror sometimes and go, doggone it, I basically did this to myself. But for me, it was a situation where, okay, I did this to myself, but are there answers? And so I went on a all-out mission. And of course, I was on the medicine, and I'm on this all-out mission that I'm going to I'm Googling it, I'm going to every website I can find, I'm checking out every association that has anything to do with medical anything, nutritionalists or dietitians. I'm talking to everybody. And I'm getting 100 different answers. And some are contradictory to each other as to what to eat, and when to eat it, how to go about it. And, I'm just getting a headache. And at the same time that I'm doing this and researching this, my numbers go from 340 to well in the normal range, and actually start dropping at times in the day below normal. And I'm like, well, maybe I don't have it. Maybe it was a fluke. But then at the exact same time that they start dropping too low, I actually lose my vision. Everything goes blurry. The only way I can see is with a magnifying glass. I had to get some really strong cheater glasses to be able to even see to walk or do anything. And growing up on a farm, and we were in the fall of the season last October. I mean, I'm driving the tractors and everything and going, golly, I can't see. This isn't good. And so I go back to my doctor, and of course, he's looking at all my numbers, and I kept the daily chart and stuff. He's looking at all my numbers, and he's like, happy. Hey, your numbers are down. This is incredible. I've never seen anybody come down this fast. And really, I'm sitting there going, yeah, but doc, I can't see. And I don't know that he sensed my panic or what I was going through, but basically he's like, yeah, I think what's happened is you've got, fluid on the back of your eyes, and it's probably twisting or tilting, your lens. It's making it so what you're seeing is just out of focus, and it'll come back. And I'm like, well, okay, good, it'll come back. And next week, how long we look? And he's like, 3, 4, maybe 6 months. I'm like, oh no, that isn't happening. So I immediately go to an eye specialist. And this lady, does every test under the book and basically comes back and says, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is your doc's right. You definitely have fluid on the back of your eyes. And yeah, it could be a while before it corrects itself. But the good news is your eyes show zero damage of any diabetic issues. And your vision's 20/20 behind the issue you're having. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel like 20/20 right now, but okay, that's good. And she goes, I'm kind of surprised that your doctor didn't, talk to you and consider maybe lowering your dose or taking you off and just seeing if maybe this would correct itself a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So, we went back and basically decided, let's start a baseline. Let's go off the medication and see what happens to the numbers. Now they're running, almost low at times and then back high, and they're kind of all over the place. Let's just see what happens without it. And the interesting thing is, this is happening over the process of a couple months. And I have not heard about and researched the diabetes solution kit yet. I haven't met Joe or Dr. Saunders or anybody. But what I am doing is, because of kind of my panic, I'm eating better. I'm off of all the sugars and the processed foods. And so I'm improving a little bit. And then obviously my numbers, because of the medicines I'm on, are improving. So things are kind of better. And then I go off, and I was off for about 5 days before when I actually did the research and found Barton Publishing and Dr. Saunders' webinar. And actually, the minute I saw it, I'm like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that there was a food plan with it really encouraged me, because that was my biggest struggle, was what do I eat and when do I eat it and how do I go about this? So I purchased that. I was 5 days in, and I was still monitoring my numbers, and I still to this day monitor them every day. And I was monitoring my numbers, and my numbers were probably at that time, after being off of all meds for 5 days, I was running 150 to 200, somewhere kind of in that zone. And so they had slipped back up, and I was concerned, maybe I am going to have to go back on the meds. But when I saw the diabetes solution kit, I'm like, okay, I'm ordering that. And I got both the hard copy and the e-version, and immediately started researching online the e-version, and realized that, okay, some of these things, getting off the sugar and the carbs and that stuff, some of these things I already had done quite a bit, but now having the less than 20 grams, okay, that was a whole nother level for me. And now once I got the hard copy and started journaling and keeping some notes in there, I got some apps on my phone that also helped me to, follow my daily progress and now monthly progress. I really started to delve into it and just follow my body and kind of listen and see what happens. And so I was on the solution kit and following the less than 20 grams of carbs and really staying to it Monday to Monday. And after 1 week, my numbers were down. I had actually crawled all the way back down into the 90s for my lows. And my highs were still, probably 115 to 120, 125. And so that was encouraging, and I was really strict. Really for the first 3 weeks, I followed the plan perfectly. I was basically zero carbs, and was getting along pretty good, and kind of stayed right about there, and still felt like, God, I think I could go a little lower, but it is what it is, and I was encouraged, and I was dropping some weight all the way along, and so that was encouraging as well. And then Dr. Saunders did a webinar, and I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to look at it, on intermittent fasting. And that was a game changer. For me, that was like an accelerant to everything that I've been dealing with, because I started doing the 6:10 reset, where I made sure I took my last bite of food by 6 o'clock. And stayed up at least till 10:30. So I got 4 to 4.5 hours of digestion and emptying my stomach. And my body, I can't tell you how much better I started feeling. My blood sugar numbers went down to, my low was still similar, in the lower 90s, but my highs were 100 to 110, and I was staying and have stayed very consistently right there. Fast forward, I've toyed with the intermittent fasting a little bit. I've actually, here just in the last 3 weeks, done some actual 24-hour fasting, where I fasted for, ate at 4 o'clock on one day, and then didn't eat again until the next 4 o'clock the next day. And I've just kind of tinkered with the fasting a little bit. I just, to me personally, and everybody's different, and what works for me probably won't work for all of you, but the intermittent fasting and giving my body, like Dr. Saunders talks about, a chance to reset overnight, I can feel the difference in just my overall how I feel. And then my blood sugar numbers, the range in them has definitely gotten narrower and narrower. Now, from time to time, I'll be out and, we'll eat out or something. And so I'll have some carbs. I try to still stay, as smart as I can, but have there been days where maybe I'm more up in the 50, 60 range? Yes. And when that happens, I'll wake up the next day, and sometimes my blood sugar will be 140, 150. But by the middle of that next afternoon, especially continuing on into a fasting state, it's once again right back down in the 90s. And so I feel like this program and this system, and adding with the intermittent fasting, has just been a godsend. I really feel like I've been able to reverse my insulin resistance, and I feel like I've got a handle, because of the fasting. I feel like I got a handle moving forward on something that I can do. And as a side note, and I don't say this to, I want to be careful, because everybody's body is going to respond different. But for me personally, from that October doctor's meeting, which was pretty much my all-time high as far as where my weight was, I just wasn't being good. I wasn't in a good shape as far as my health overall. I have dropped 60 pounds to today. And so, that's exciting. But, I've always been one that can kind of go up and down pretty quick. And so those numbers might seem a little bit, and they might be a little more extreme than most people would get. But I also 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, added some small exercise to it. And I'm trying to take it slow, and I'm trying to make it doable. My exercise is literally 10 to 15 minutes a day. It includes some basic, sit-up types of things, a little bit of cardio, and just a little bit of weight lifting, light weight training, but nothing huge, nothing big. Just trying to take it day by day. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned in this journey is that each person, you have to get a feel for your own body. You have to understand what your body's trying to tell you. And my biggest takeaway is a combination of the fasting before you go to bed is huge. And then if you're getting good sleep, and I'm a fortunate sleeper, I've always slept really good, especially my first 4 to 6 hours every night. I sleep like a log. And I think my body does a really good job of just, healing itself and repairing itself and resetting for the next day. And so for me personally, Joe Barton, Dr. Saunders, I can't say thank you enough. And for those of you who are watching this and maybe thinking, how do I trust one website versus the next? And I understand that. I've been through that process. The fact that they do this and the webinars are 100% free, the cost of the diabetes solution kit is very minimal. And the fact that on the webinars you can actually ask a board certified UCLA medical doctor in Dr. Saunders questions, and they'll get to most of them and answer them. And I've had a number that they've answered of mine. You just don't see that, And yes, the webinar is sponsored by a couple of good supplements, but they aren't sitting there just trying to twist your arm and saying you have to have these. It's an option. And I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys have done. I appreciate your hearts. And it's just a situation where the world needs more people and more websites and more webinars like this to get the information out there that there is answers to some of our problems. And so I'm encouraged. I hope this video encourages you guys, and I look forward to seeing you on some of the webinars in the future. And, once again, everybody at Barton Publishing, thank you very much. Have a good one. God bless.